Okay, so welcome to second part of the same video, setting up the master cluster over here. Now, this cluster is already created in our previous video. You can see, watch my previous video to understand how we have created this particular cluster with the help of Kubernetes method. Now, that time what I have done that I have accessed my cluster with the help of this master machine only. Okay? Now from the master machine I am able to access the cluster with the help of kubectl command. If I show you once again the same thing, this is the master machine right now, and from this master machine gives reports, you are able to access your cluster. Correct? Now this is what we have done only for lab purpose to understand the Kubernetes. I want to learn the Kubernetes. That's okay that you are able to connect with your master to your Kubernetes cluster with the kubectl command. That's okay. But in reality, that is not the case. Let's say that I am a developer, I am an operation data center operation guy, or you can say Kubernetes administrator, and I want to manage this entire cluster. Nobody give you the permission to connect with any of your worker or master. You cannot do SSH. So if somebody is thinking in this way that okay, from my client machine or from my machine I will do the SSH to this master machine first. Okay, I will create a SSH session over here, and from once I got the control of the master, I would be able to execute the kubectl command. No, that is not. First of all, nobody can give you the access of any of the, forget about master, they will not give you the access of the workers also, even if it is an on-premises cluster. Even if it is an on-premises cluster, you do not have a permission to do SSH to any of your node inside. Then how do I access this particular cluster? Very simple mechanism is available. The very first condition should be whatever network which you have for your cluster and whatever network which you have on your client, okay, they are able to reach each other. That means technically the networking between your client machine and your cluster should be reachable. So network should be reachable. It's a primary condition. Okay, that is the primary condition. So I don't know, as a developer, I really don't know where is my cluster. What is the IP address of the masters? Directly I don't know. What are the IP address of the worker? No, I don't know anything. The only condition is my developer machine, whether it's a Windows machine, whether it's a Linux machine, whatever machine which you are using for a developer side, this particular machine should be reachable to the cluster. That means the network reachability should be there. That is the only condition. Maybe that you are on a different site, this cluster is on a different site, you are connected through the VPN. I really don't care. You are connected through the VPN, then your site, you are would be the part of that site, and then you are able to access the cluster. That's okay. You can use VPN, you can use a direct connect, whatever networking technology you are supposed to use it. But whatever client machine you want to connect with the cluster, or if you would like to execute a command on the cluster, or you want to use your cluster, the basic condition would be your machine should be reachable to your cluster. That is the second condition would be you should install the kubectl kubectl utility on your client machine. That's it. This is the only client utility I'm supposed to install. That's it. Correct? Now this is the first part. So the first requirement should be whatever client machine which you have it should be reachable to your cluster. through the network. I don't know what is the networking technology you are running behind the scene. Second, you are supposed to install kubectl utility on this machine. This is the primary requirement which I have. Okay. So if I go to my demo session right now, this is what I have done. So I already have the cluster available with me. Now I have a client machine. Imagine this is my client machine. Okay. So I will take the putty access of this particular client machine. It's actually 50. Okay. So if you can see, this is not my cluster machine. This is a separate machine out of the cluster. The only condition which I have, this machine is reachable to this network. Technically they are in the same network, that's why they are reachable. But in, you can see in the production line, you are sitting in Pune, your cluster in Bangalore. That's okay. You have a VPN connectivity between you, between your machine and your cluster data center. Okay. So technically what I required it, the network reachability is there. So I will go ahead and show you what is my network reachability over here, that I am able to connect with any of the network over here. I really don't worry about the workers technically. I'm worried about the master. So from my client machine, if I say ping 192.168.226.8, am I able to ping? Yes. This is what my first condition is. Okay. Now this particular machine don't have kubectl. Okay. This machine is not a part of your cluster. Okay. So this machine is a client machine, or you can imagine this machine is a developer machine. Developer is doing some programming over here and he is launching the pod on the top of the Kubernetes cluster. Imagine. Correct. Now what is my second condition? What I told you, you should have a kubectl installation should be there. So what I did, what I want to do it, I want to install the kubectl on this client machine. So what I will do it, I will go to the Kubernetes documentation over here. Okay. So install Kubernetes. Okay. Now here we do have a repository available where I can download and install all the kubeadm and everything. Correct. What I will do it, I will take the same repository, but I don't want to install kubeadm because I just want a client utility. So what I will do it, I will take the advantage of this repository. Okay, I don't want this machine to be the part of cluster, so I just want to install the kubectl. So I will copy this, put this repository over here. Okay, and what I want to install it, I want to install kubectl. Remember that. Okay, so I copy pasted all the command, but I don't want kubeadm kubectl because that is the component required to create a cluster. I just want to install kubectl over here. That's it. Okay, so let me install the client utility on this machine. Okay, this is a very base machine which I have created, so it might take some time. Okay, so I got the kubectl hyphen version. Okay, direction valid. Okay, I think they have changed the argument. Okay, where is the version? It is there. API direct version is there. Okay. Okay. So you can see this is the version which we have installed. So this is the client version. Client version is 1.30. Okay. Now you can see the connection to the server is refused. That's okay. Okay. Now I have installed the necessary components. So I do have a network reachability to my cluster. I do have a kubectl utility installed on my client machine. Correct. But how come this kubectl will identify where is my cluster? Okay, how this particular kubectl command, for example, if I say kubectl get nodes, okay, so he said he couldn't get the API server at all. So technically what he's trying to do, he tried to connect with the local API server, isn't it? Yes. And he said that I won't be able to do connect with that. But do you have your API server, or you can say, do you have your Kubernetes server available over here? No. Simple meaning that your client machine don't understand where to go to connect with the cluster. I should know where is my master, correct? Where is my master running? Where is my API server running? So whenever my request will go, my request actually goes to the master, to the API, Cube API server, isn't it? Yes. So whenever your client will try to connect it, he will go to the master and he will try to connect with the most important component called as Cube API server. Remember that. And Cube API server will help us for authentication, authorization, and admission. Correct? These are the three responsibilities. My Cube API server will do authentication, authorization, and admission control. Now we will take the admission control later on. But currently my kubectl first of all don't know where is my API server. He got the error because he tried to connect locally. He will say localhost over here. Correct? So locally doesn't connect it. Now here you have to provide some information from cluster to this particular client machine. Okay? What information which I need to give it to him? I need to give him the authentication and authorization related information to this client. Okay. So whatever client which you are using, now this is for single node cluster or it is made for multi-node cluster. Logic is same. Your client should go to this API server, do authentication, do authorization, do automation control, and then only he will get the access of your cluster. So your client should know what is my authentication, what is my authorization, and where is my cluster or where is my API server. Correct? So this information is available with the Cube API server. Okay, or this information is currently available on this master machine. Correct? Now remember that currently, if you talk about authentication in Kubernetes cluster, let me tell you the reality of the Kubernetes cluster. Kubernetes cluster do not have any native authentication mechanism. Let me tell you that Kubernetes do not have any native authentication mechanism available inside the cluster. If you go and check the documentation, Kubernetes authentication, okay, you can see whatever authentication currently supported adopted by the Kubernetes, it is available in this documentation. Okay, so you can see bootstrap token, barrier token, 509 certificates. Okay, so you can see authentication strategy. Okay, you can use username, UID, group, all the documentations are mentioned over here, but the basic authentication mechanism is certificate based authentication is available. Static token file, this is no more in the use. Okay, barrier token authentication is there, bootstrap token authentication is there, service account token authentication is there. So there are so many type of authentication mechanism is available, but every authentication mechanism do have its own purpose, correct? But natively Kubernetes do not have anything like I can store your username and password, your client can type username and password, I can authenticate and I will give the access of the Kubernetes. Such kind of native authentication is not available. If you want that kind of authentication to be available, we have to integrate our Kubernetes cluster with third party authentication. For example, there are many third party authentication tools are available. If you go for JW2 token, so there is a very interesting tool which is a open source tool is available called as Kclock. So it's a JSON based authentication token. You can go ahead and do it. You can integrate your this tool with the Kubernetes for your authentication. You will get a bootstrap token, a long token would be given to you and that token will authenticate you, correct? But for the first time configuration we have not done any authentication over here, but still from the master I am able to connect with the cluster without any error, correct? So authentication would be done over here. What about authorization? How does my API server should know that, oh, you are authorized to access this object, you are not authorized to access this object? So how Kubernetes cluster will decide it? Now here there is a very interesting authorization plugin which is natively available called as RBAC policy. Okay, role-based access control is available for authorization, which is a native utility which is available. Now people can also control the authorization with the help of third-party utility if you want. You can say authentication and authorization should be handled by Azure AD. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. I said authentication should be handled by Kclock and authorization should be handled by Airbag. Is it possible? Yes. So there you need an integration to be happened. But when I set up this cluster for the first time, I have not done any. Then what is the first time method which we are going to use? Now, whenever you set up the cluster by default in Kubernetes, we are using a method to authenticate yourself with the help of X509 client certificate based authentication. This is the certificate based authentication we are using. How come? Now remember that whenever your Kubernetes cluster was setting up, okay, if you remember on the master machine, okay, let me show you that output is still present. Okay, you can see whenever you create a cluster, okay, that time he already created a file called as etc kubernetes admin.conf. Now this file is created on the master. Now this is the admin conf file. So remember that by default inside your Kubernetes cluster there is a Kubernetes admin user is available. This is a native user. Only single user is available called as Kubernetes admin, to connect with that Kubernetes admin, this configuration file has been generated. This configuration file has been generated. Now, if you remember what I have done, I will copy this file and put it into this location and rename that file by the name called as conf. But I want to see what is available in this admin.conf file, correct? So if I go to cd etc Kubernetes, Kubernetes will keep all his manifest file, their certificates, their configuration file, everything is available into this directory. Do not modify any file from this particular directory. If you do that, your complete cluster would get messed up. It is not recommended that you are supposed to go ahead and modify any file. Now this is the admin.conf file I'm talking about. So if I do vi admin.conf file, you would be able to see this is the complete information with respect to my cluster is available. You can see this is my API version. Okay, this is the CA certificate authority. Okay, that there is a authority who signed this particular certificate, so that data is available. This is the IP address and port number of your API server. This is the name of the cluster. Into the next video, I will show you that how you can create your cluster with the customized name, because here whatever name is available is called as Kubernetes, correct? This is the user, Kubernetes admin user. Okay, so that means this file which is automatically got generated, this file is generated for which user? For Kubernetes admin user, which want to connect to the cluster name called as Kubernetes, whose API server is running on this particular server, and he will get the authentication because this particular certificate has been signed by C. Now who is certificate authority? Your master machine. Okay, your master node act like a certification authority. Means this admin.conf file, when it was in the phase of generation, he create a certificate. That certificate has been signed by the master, and he will give me the configuration file called as admin.conf, where certifications are already available for authentication. So this is the admin.conf file is available for admin user. That means I get full privilege to access the cluster, isn't it? Yes. In upcoming videos, I will tell you that I want to give a specific access. I want to restrict a particular user only with the help of certificate based authentication. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. But currently we are not going to go ahead and do that. So this is the file which is available. Now imagine this is a client machine. Now if I take this admin.conf file from here and copy it over here, and from that admin.conf file, if I execute the command, what will happen? I will get the full access on the cluster because I got authentication from that certificate which is available where? In admin.conf. So here under etc Kubernetes /admin.conf file was created. This file is made for Kubernetes admin to get a full access on the cluster. And if I copy this file from here and give it to this machine or give it to this person, and I will ask this person, now you can execute the command, what will happen? Whenever he will get execution of any kubectl command, he would be using the certificate authentication from this file and get authenticated from the API. So you will get full access, correct? But in reality, we will never provide this admin.conf file to anyone. So what I will do, if you are a developer, I will create a separate file for you, separate certificate for you, separate restriction for you. Okay, so you will only get the access, limited access on the cluster. You will not get a full access. So administrator will create the file for you, and that file would be given to you. You have to follow some procedure. The location you have to keep the file, and you have to rename the file. You would be able to connect with. File is exactly the same, admin.conf, whatever file, same content is available, but you will get your certificate data is same because this is created by master. This server is same, name is same, but here it's the admin user. Here you will get your own username. Correct? So according to the user, according to their restrictions, we will create separate configuration file for every user. We will provide a restriction and we will give that admin.conf file to user depending upon their role. Correct? But currently we will not take that when we are discussing RBAC and user management of Kubernetes cluster. That time we will go ahead and understand. But imagine right now this guy who is sitting on this machine, he is an admin, Kubernetes admin, and he would like to have a full access on the cluster. What should I do? Simple. Go to your master. Okay, don't do any changes. This is my master. This is the location where that admin.conf file is available from the master, and this is my client machine. Correct? So on the client machine, what you need to do it, you need to go to mkdir. You have to create a directory called as .cube, and this is a hidden directory. Okay, this is a hidden directory called as .cube. You have to create it. Now I have to copy this admin.conf file from here to client machine. Okay, so what I will do it, I'm using the command code as scp. I would say I want to copy admin.conf. I want to copy this file to root user @192.168.226.50. The location where I want to copy this, under the root directory there is a cube folder, and I need to rename this file by the name called as config. Okay, I would say enter. I would say yes. It will ask me the root password, so file get copied. So if I go back to my client machine, and if I go to .cube right now, and if I say ls-l, same admin.conf file I have received over here. Okay, same config file is available over here. Inside this config file, same admin.conf file, same structure is available. I literally copy paste that file to this machine, and I just rename that file to config file. Now if I execute the kubectl command from the client machine, kubectl get nodes, you are able to get the result. Why? Earlier I couldn't get the API server. Now my kubectl command go to this directory called as .cube. He is reading this particular config file. He will take this config file for authentication or authorization to that IP address which is mentioned in this config. So in this config file, is try to reach to this IP address with this client CA and his local certificate for authentication. And because of that, I am able to get this result on the screen. So remember point number one. Okay, in reality, in a production environment, nobody can give you the access of your cluster directly. What they will ask you, first make sure that whatever machine you are using, that should be reachable to your cluster. I don't know what you are using behind the scene for network. Then install the kubectl command on your machine. Correct? Then ask your Kubernetes administrator what kind of authentication which you are using. So your Kubernetes administrator either give you a token, either he will give you credential like username and password if you have integrated Azure AD over there. Correct? Or or he might give you something like this admin.conf. So you have to take that file, install kubectl already there under the root home directory or whatever user which you are logged in on that machine. Go to that directory, create a folder called as cube, and copy that file by the name called as config. So currently in my scenario, I work as a root user. So under the root user home directory, I created a folder called as .cube. I copy the same file because I don't want to generate the new file. Whatever file was created for admin, because I told you there is a default user called as Kubernetes admin, and I'm taking the same file, copy it over here, rename it as a config file. Now from this machine, my kubectl command will go to this API, get authenticated because I got super user credentials, and I am able to get the result on my screen. Okay, but in reality you will get your own configuration file. You will get restrictions inside your cluster. They will not give you any full access on the cluster. So this is the logic how you are going to connect with your cluster. Correct. If you talk about any cloud based implementation also, cloud also give you the first time user, they will give you the admin.conf, not admin.conf directly, but this kind of file they will give you. So you can connect with your any cloud based EKS cluster or any Kubernetes cluster with that file with admin privilege. Correct. So this is very interesting mechanism, that how do you connect with the cluster, because I have created the cluster, but I am executing all the command from this master machine. So do I get the access of the master machine? No. You will get a file. Copy that file into this .q folder, rename that file as a config. You will start communicating with the cluster with the help of this config, because whatever necessary configuration which you required, it's available over here. IP address of API server, who are you, what is your certificate, everything is available over here. And he will go to the cluster, give them a certificate, he will authenticate you on the cluster and allow you to access the necessary information about your cluster. Okay, so this is what you can do it with the help of, normally we are using the admin.conf file. So this is how you can access the cluster from outside the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so we can stop it over here. Okay, now we are going to start kubespray based installation. But before you go for kubespray, I will have a small discussion on Ansible, what Ansible is, what Ansible can do, then how Kubernetes team use Ansible inside your. Okay, so we will stop it over here. We will go ahead and create another series on Kubernetes installation on kubespray method. Watch this video, enjoy it, learn it. Thank you.